It was Rail Safety Week once again at Sydney Central Station, and on Sunday, August 11th, 2019, we see the New South Wales Rail Museum's Thomas the Tank Engine on display to promote railway safety to young children. Behind Thomas is one of the newest trains that replaced the old S-sets back in July 2019, which is the Waratah B-set. We'll see the newest train later on, as we now see Museum of Applied Arts and Sciences 3265 doing shuttle trips from Sydney to Rhodes. Here we see Chicago Leasing Freight Car Company Australia's GL109 Just a Dash pulling the loco and its train from its second shuttle trip. We hop on board the train and we'll make our way to Rhodes, albeit with some wind noises from the carriage. We return to Sydney, and we see 3265 departing for Rhodes one last time for the day. While the 32 class heads for Rhodes, we take one last look at the Waratah B-set and Thomas the Tank Engine. The Waratahs had two sets introduced. Set A were delivered from 2011 to 2014. A total of 78 were delivered, which was the largest rolling stock order in Australia's history, and it had replaced 498 S-set trains.
The next train to arrive on platform 3 terminates here. Please do not join this train.
The B-sets, like this one, were introduced from 2018, and the delivery of these sets is to be complete by September 2020. This is where we conclude the Rail Safety Week event for 2019. We see 3265 once again, this time with sister engine 3237 from the Lachlan Valley Railway, which had returned to service just in time for the Richmond Heritage Weekend shuttles from Richmond to Mulgrave on Sunday, September 22nd, 2019. Here we see 3237 leading the way back to Richmond at East Richmond with its first train. While we await for the 232 class engines, we see a bit of old and new passing through. A typical electric train from Sydney Trains is heading its way to Sydney Central Station, while a vintage double-decker bus from the Sydney Bus Museum makes its way to Clarendon with passengers from Richmond, where a vintage vehicle festival is taking place. We now see 3265 leading the train towards Mulgrave. At Clarendon, another electric is waiting its turn to use the single track, while 3237 leads the way back to Richmond. Here we see the same double-decker bus from East Richmond taking more passengers back to Richmond. Here's another one heading its way back to Richmond as well on the same route. We now see the two engines coming into Clarendon. These two will stop here for a few minutes to let pass an electric train from Sydney making its way to Richmond. (3237) was built by Bear Peacock & Co. in Manchester, England in 1892 and entered service on February 26, 1893 as number P508. That was its original number before it was classified with the number it's holding today from the New South Wales Government Railways 1924 renumbering scheme. The 32s were known as the P-class. The engine had worked mainline trains around New South Wales, such as hauling express passenger trains and light freight trains. 3237 was stationed at double locomotive depot during its latter part of its working career, working reclamation trains and as a yard shunter until it retired in 1971. It ran a total of 2,225,244 miles. 3237 was stored at Enfield Locomotive Depot for 3 years before being moved to Parks in 1974, not under its own steam, with the Garrett Loco 6042 and 3026, the latter two being both in steam, to be placed as exhibits at the former Lachlan Vintage Village at Forbes. It later moved to Carra, which is the Lachlan Valley Railway's base at the Carra Roundhouse, when it was purchased at the village. It stayed there until 2009 when the line was suspended due to declining freight trains, high maintenance costs and safety concerns. 3237 resided at Goulburn before moving to the New South Wales Rail Museum at Thelmere during September 2019. As the electric train makes its way through, the 232 class engines now make their way to Mulgrave. We now see them pulling into Richmond. The two engines, their crews and volunteers are now on a break. 3265 is now receiving water from a nearby water pump. While the two locos are on break, out of the blue, a Hercules transport aircraft flies by, heading its way to the Royal Australian Air Force Base, which is located at Clarendon. We now see the 32s again, this time pulling into Mulgrave. We now conclude our October edition with 3237 now leading back to Richmond.